Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig, and I just wanted to give you an update. Over the last 9 months, in large part because of your listener support, we've managed to build this show into one of the top guitar and human interest podcasts online. As a result, we now have openings for a select group of businesses to advertise on and sponsor this show. And I thought you, as a listener, would be in the best position to make recommendations to business owner friends of yours who might benefit from advertising here on the Everyone Loves Guitar show. So if you know a business owner who might profit from advertising on this show, have them connect with me by going to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertising. Again, that's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertising. I'd love to have a brief conversation with them to see how we might be able to help. Thanks for your help, and now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. We are here with a really cool guy and a very well-balanced human being and an excellent guitar player with Jimmy Olander, also known as Jimmy O. He's the lead guitarist from Diamond Rio. He's held that slot for a good long while. He started his professional career teaching banjo at the local hippie music store called Music Strings and Things in Birmingham, Michigan. Just prior to his 13th birthday, he taught and gigged throughout Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana until he moved to Nashville at age 17. He attended Belmont College, studying the music business, playing banjo and acoustic at Opryland in 1980, as well as some local TV and specialty shows with the Belmont Reasons College PR group. After 2.5 years, he got an electric guitar and an amp, and he dropped out of college. He gigged clubs for a brief stint and then got an artist gig with Mel McDaniel and tried to actually learn how to play the guitar, although I would challenge him that he really probably knew how to play the guitar amazingly well. In the mid-'80s, he got off the road and he gigged locally in Nashville, and he did session work. He joined what would become Diamond Rio, which is a country music group, in 1985, and he is still playing with the same guys 33 years later. Man, most marriages don't last that long, let alone a bunch of guys in a band. Seriously, that's a hell of a testament to like commitment or willingness to get along and work stuff out, man. That's really cool. During this time, he's participated as a guitarist, writer, or producer, contributing to 24 plus million albums sold. They were the first band. Diamond Rio was the first band in country music history to have their debut single go to #1. His first #1 recording was in March of 91, and the most recent recording was in December 2017. That's 26. Is that right? 26 years. What a spread, man. He was inducted as a member of the Grand Ole Opry in 1998, and he just celebrated his 20th year performing as a member of the Opry. Diamond Rio, 3 times Vocal Group of the Year Award winner with the Country Music Association, 1-time Album of the Year Award winner with the Country Music Association, and 3 times Vocal Group of the Year with the ACM. That's the Academy of Country Music. Jimmy also got the Academy of Country Music's Guitar Player of the Year Award in 2001. That's a very prestigious honor. He's also won a Dove Award as both producer and artist, and a Grammy Award winner as both producer and artist. He's got 14 Grammy nominations. Charitably, he does a lot of charitable work. National spokesperson for Big Brothers and Big Sisters from 1995 to 2014. He's the recipient of the Minnie Pearl and Country Radio Broadcaster Humanitarian Awards. He led the running group Team Rio in running 10 years of consecutive charity marathons, raising over $500,000 for Big Brothers and Big Sisters and United Cerebral Palsy, while surpassing the $1 million mark with other charitable endeavors. And here's some fun stuff about him. He was only one of 3 guitar players to give lessons to John Fogerty when John took up residence in Nashville. Jimmy's also taken over 100 fans and radio personalities for their first skydives during a Jumpin' with Jimmy radio promotion that Diamond Rio ran in conjunction with its touring schedule. And you've done 800 skydives?
Just about 800, just under 800.
Wow, man. Closest I'd get is to watching the video of that, man. That's not my thing, man. He also carries a Department of Defense clearance. He carried this in the 90s to jump out of, get strapped to, or shoot the baddest weaponry the U.S. Armed Services had to offer. He spent time training with SEAL Team 10 while grounded in the Chesapeake Bay, and he's currently training to do his first ultra trail race of 50K. That's like a lot. It was like 20. Is that a marathon? A little over a marathon?
It's 31 miles.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Another thing, I'll watch the video. He's the father of two great boys that he shares with his wife, Claudia. They were adopted late in life, and the family's enjoying a great open relationships with Jimmy's son's parents, birth parents. And man, if you haven't heard Jimmy play, he's a beautiful player. He's a very soulful and smooth player on both electric and acoustic. So if you haven't heard him, check out Jimmy Olander on YouTube. He's got a great YouTube channel called The Jimmy O Show, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Man, thank you so much for your time. You're a busy dude.
Thanks, Craig. You are as well.
Thanks. First of all, I want to, like I said, congratulate you not only on musical success, but on being together for 33 years. What is the top things that's allowed that to happen? Because that's incredible, man.
Well, you know what? I always joke that we all strapped ourselves with large mortgages, and it's just you got to continue to work. But you know what? Specifically, the reality of this situation when we were actually a show band at Opryland, and not all of the guys did that, but three of us were there, and the Tennessee River Boys left Opryland. And when we started trying to get a record deal, man, we weren't making any money. When we finally got signed with Arista and we're starting to have some hits, we were a little bit worried about egos getting out of control. And like bands do, personalities with success, a lot of times your eccentricities can get accentuated and you can kind of let those things go. So we came up with a business model that if we wanted to fire a guy in the band, it needed to be there are 6 guys, so it needed to be a unanimous decision of 5 to fire. And then the band had to assess the assets of the band and buy that partner out. If somebody wanted to quit, they quit and walked with nothing. So it kind of tied us all it made it hard for somebody to quit, and it made it hard for us to fire somebody.
Wow. So has anybody been fired over 33 years?
No, it's all the original members. That's
amazing, man. That is like, virtually impossible.
Yeah, well, there's still kind of a lot to stake at this. But you know what? We starved together, and we were friends, and we were making music, and we were never a cover band. We always did original material, and it has always been, relatively creatively satisfying. And we have worked hard to, do our thing. We've got a little bit of a unique kind of, each personality in the band has a little bit of a unique thing that they brought to this. We're definitely in the country music genre, but we've got, a drummer that grew up playing top 40 and rock and roll. We got a piano player that studied a bunch of jazz. We got 3 of us that grew up playing bluegrass and 1 guy that was hardcore country, and so we've all kind of brought different things to this and really tried to look at the strengths of the band members and accentuate, oh man, our mandolin player, he sings as high as the rafters. He's got this little edge to his voice. Let's see. And the rest of these guys can sing really high. Let's make sure every chorus we do is as absolutely screaming high as possible. Everybody kind of, for our recordings, we're honoring the material and staying true to the genre, but we're also trying to exploit the things, maybe something unique about this guy or that guy, and make recordings with those kind of parameters on it.
That's awesome, man. It's funny when you said that in the beginning that you're, as you get successful, people's eccentricities are exaggerated. A guy told me a long time ago, and I found this to be true. He said, having money doesn't change you. It brings out more of what you were. So he said, if you were an asshole before and now you got a boatload of money, you're going to be a real asshole. If you're a kind person before, you're more inclined to be even nicer. I don't know. I've seen that that's kind of true. I don't know what your experience has been or have noticed that.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Those and if there are, you're talking about the being a jerk type of stuff, man, if that stuff is laying dormant in your personality, all of a sudden, you're surrounded by people. Now, being in a band is a little bit different, that I've got 5 other peer level people. But if you're a solo act, everybody that surrounds you is making $1 off of you, and you can slip into the emperor's new clothes at any moment. Yeah. And, it's like, and so if and plus success, unfortunately, if you let it go to your head, can really bring you to a place of false entitlement.
Yeah.
And the people around you that are making money off of you are going to go ahead and indulge some of those entitlements. And man, I remember my wife straightening me out when we had she walked by me and she had got me a cup of coffee, and she walked by me one time and I just had my hand out with my coffee cup, like, I expect you to give me, didn't ask for a cup, I'd been out there with the handlers on the road and all these people. And she's like, what do you think you're doing, man? I think it's time for you to take out the trash.
That's awesome. Yeah. But that probably would hit home and well, that's a good lesson and an inexpensive lesson and a, well-meant lesson,
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. You were teaching and gigging at a very young age. What's the backstory to that?
Well, I had fallen in love with playing banjo. I actually moved to Nashville as a banjo player. And I was up in the Detroit area, and I had actually discovered my dad had this old mahogany Martin tenor guitar, 4-string guitar. So it's either a baritone ukulele or a tenor guitar, and a bunch of old melody and chord arrangements. And I just was kind of messing around with that stuff and trying to teach that stuff to myself. And I don't know where the logic was, but he said, man, if you get good enough on this stuff, I'll get you a banjo. And for some reason, I thought that was the golden ticket, he'll get me a banjo. So there were no banjo teachers in the local area. So I got there were no 4-string banjo teachers in the local area. So I got a 5-string banjo, and I went to Music Strings and Things, and I took some lessons from a girl named Maggie Taylor. She was a really great teacher. And so I took for about 6 months, and then I took off for about another 6 months and just studied through transcription. And this is back in the days, when we didn't have a cassette player, so I had to drop the needle. And, my mother, crazy, dropped the needle. I can remember she had to leave the house and go drive around the block because I was trying to learn this Jack Hicks lick off of a Bill Monroe Live from Bean Blossom thing that anyway, just lots of time with transcription. And being a kid, I didn't have a job. I'd play banjo 8 hours a day. So if you can imagine that household with a banjo going 8 hours a day, my parents are saints.
Yeah.
Because you go nuts. And I took off about 6 months, studied, and then went back to the music store. And my skills, kids are like sponges. My skills just exponentially went through the roof. And I went back and took over the intermediate advanced lessons at that store. So I was almost 13. And these guys, I can remember, in bluegrass though, I don't know if you've spent a bunch of time watching any bluegrass, man, there are young virtuosos. It's ridiculous. Nobody's told these kids that they can't play that well. I mean, it's fast and impressive. So I went back to that music store, and it was, hippie in nature. And, we know about racist, but this guy is the first time I see the music store owner was like, well, if you're responsible and your old man brings you up here on time, we're not ageist here. We'll let you take on this stuff. So I taught there until I moved to Nashville.
So you must have, as a kid, you must have been making really good money. It must have felt great.
I was teaching there after school. So now this is also right around the time that Deliverance came out. So dueling banjos was the big thing, and everybody wanted to learn to play banjo. And it was that sweet spot of I had a bunch of students there. So I would teach after school every day and all day on Saturday. And
That's
so,
great.
yes. Yeah. So I can remember I had a custom made banjo for me. I was maybe 15, and it was, I think that thing was $1,300. I was like, no problem.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's
pretty
a lot
cool.
of money
Yeah.
for a kid.
That's a lot of money. And that was back a bit, that's back.
That's mid-70s.
In the mid-70s. Yeah. So that's a lot. Now, I see you got a couple of banjos there. You still play banjo all the time?
Yes. Well, not all the time, but I go in spurts of being a banjo owner and getting back to being a banjo player. I've lost a lot of my banjo chops. However, this last year, Diamond Rio went in residency at the Opryland Hotel and did a Christmas show. And I put the show together for our Christmas season, and I kind of challenged my partners and myself. It was limited to an hour, and I tried to cram as much music and as much whatever entertainment in as possible. So I committed to doing 5 suites of the Nutcracker Suite.
Oh, wow.
5 movements of the Nutcracker Suite on banjo. And man, let me tell you, Craig, that was, I started early in the year working that stuff out. Yeah. I did the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies, the Dance of the Reed Pipes, Overture, the Russian Dance, and there's another one in there someplace.
That's not easy material at all.
No, actually, you know what? I can do a Diamond Rio show, like I'm up doing my taxes, but doing any of the Tchaikovsky stuff, I was like rehearsing before the show. I would play the show. I'd take the banjo home, make sure I run it at home, come back, warm up before the show, do it again. So,
is any of that on YouTube? Because I'd like to see some of that, actually. That sounds kind of cool.
Perhaps.
Make a note here. You went to Belmont in Nashville to study music, and then you leave after 2.5 years. I think that's a pretty big thing to do, from a courage sort of, it's a big decision to make and then to execute on that. So I give you props for that, and congratulations for having the balls to do that. That being said, you must have been pretty dissatisfied of somewhere to make a big change like that. What was missing, and what gave you the confidence to make that decision?
Well, it was an interesting, so I moved to Nashville, I was 17, just going to my first year in college. And I had an old 53 GMC pickup truck, and I had all these banjos, and, I had an acoustic guitar and all this stuff. And I moved down there, and I was doing very well in school. And I was playing locally. I played with a guy named Randall Hilton, who was kind of a bluegrass hit songwriter, and we'd do stuff on the Carl Tipton show, some early morning TV stuff. But I found that the bluegrass in the Nashville area was all uber traditional at the time and not really good. And I was going to school, and as you had mentioned earlier, I was making a lot of money as a kid up in the Detroit area. I moved down here, and I don't have a job really, and I'm going to school, and I'm paying my way through college. And man, I'm just spending this fortune, and I really wasn't scholastically or intellectually feeling the return on the money spent there. And it meant I was put in an interesting and fun situation. I had done the PR group with the Reasons. The PR group with Belmont were the Belmont Reasons, and the lineup with that was Kurt Howell, who went on to have a artist deal with Southern Pacific with some of the guys from Creedence and some of the guys from Doobies. Dan Huff was the guitar player in the Reasons. His brother played drums. Gary Lund, big session bass player. It was an all-star band. We got to play with these guys. It was great. So it wasn't all, like nothing was going on. But I just kind of got underwhelmed with the school experience. And there was this little steel player that talked me into buying an electric guitar and going out and trying to learn to play. And I had been playing some with some of these other hot players and kind of sitting in and imposing the banjo on more contemporary styles. But anyway, man, I took up the guitar, and I've been, I tried to learn that, and it was a struggle for a bit, making the transition with my hands from an acoustic music thing to electric, and not overplaying the instruments with lighter string tension and lower actions, and coming up with the right sounds and stuff like that. I will tell you, it was a challenge.
Yeah, but that's really, I think that's a pretty mature, even to have that awareness to sit and say, am I getting an ROI, return on my investment on what I'm doing here? That's not a normal, and I mean that in a good way. That's not the average kid is thinking, where's the girls going to be? What party are the girls going to be at this weekend? And I really, that's really awesome that you were able to do that. I certainly didn't have that wherewithal at that age, for sure.
No, where are the girls going to be? This is a funny story. I can remember we were in the studio. We're cutting one of the Diamond Rio records, and we had loaded in, and Black Hawk had just got done doing this. I don't know if you know Black Hawk, but Henry Paul used to be in the Outlaws.
Yeah, I know Henry.
And so we were between sessions, and everybody's kind of chilling out in the control room, and the switch over from Black Hawk to Diamond Rio was incredible anyway, because man, we're much more goody two shoes than the Black Hawk guys.
Yeah.
So we're sitting around there, and it never dawned on me. They went around, well, why did you start playing? And this guy'd go, well, to pick up girls. Why'd you start playing? Round the piece by piece by piece by, it's all the same story. I was like at an AA meeting. Everybody's telling me their sobriety story. And it got to me, and I was like,
it's funny, man.
Well, I kind of like the sound of a banjo. I felt like a super geek at that moment.
Well, I guess playing that young, probably you didn't, who's thinking of girls at 12? Not very many,
Yeah, I don't know. It never dawned on me that playing music was to pick up girls, and it obviously I was the odd man out on that one.
I like the sound of the banjo. That's awesome, man. In the mid 80s, you stopped touring and you started playing sessions. I was curious, what made you decide to get off the road, and how'd you go about getting session work?
Well, I had been out with Mel McDaniel for, I can't even remember, Craig. All this stuff's been such an eternity ago. But I was out there, I bet you 3.5, 4 years, something like that with Mel. And the road was, we were doing the same songs, and I think you had read in the bio at the beginning of the show, I was literally trying to learn to play the electric guitar because through my years as a kid transcribing banjo stuff, banjo notes come at a huge velocity. There's lots of notes per beat. And so my transcription skills were very, very good. I didn't really know how to play the guitar. I couldn't sit in and do a blues jam with anybody. I couldn't sit in and know every Merle Haggard song that ever came down the pipe because I wasn't versed in that stuff. However, I could transcribe record parts and I could repeat them. And that's what that gig was all about. As a matter of fact, Andy Reese got me the gig, and he had left the gig because he had no interest in repeating the record parts. He wanted to do a little bit more artistry. Andy's an incredible player. Yeah. And he didn't get along with Mel. And, man, I needed my first gig, and it was perfect for a guy that really didn't know a whole lot, but could play like the record.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so I'd go out and had a gig at night, and during the day I would, try to learn to play the electric guitar. So, it's a crazy journey. Anyway, that was my start.
Yeah.
All this stuff. So, I kind of got out of that gig what I wanted, and then, I was interested in doing some sessions. I was interested in staying home a little bit because, man, I was gone constantly.
Were you married back then, or?
Was I married? Maybe. I'm on my second marriage right now. The first one was just, man.
I had one of those too.
Did you really?
Yeah. It's a trial marriage.
It was of my own doing, man. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and I, hardcore codependent. And I found a version of my mother that needed fixing, and I married her. And it was just, man, I just pretty much stepped into my own stuff on that one. So,
yeah.
But anyway, I got off the road, and I was working around town and doing some session stuff. And it was a real interesting progression for me because I found out early on that I liked doing certain sessions where people actually wanted to hire me. I didn't really like to do the journeyman session thing where they were hiring a great guitar player and come and play, and do all these different styles, which, by this time I could do quite a bit of different stuff, and I could mimic this person and I could mimic that person, and I could, I was a functioning guitar player.
Yeah.
But I had the opportunity. Joe Glazer had hooked me up with some artists, Rick and Janice Carnes, that were recording for Electra Asylum, and they wanted a string bender guitar player. I think that they were fans of the Everlys, and they were fans of Graham Parsons, and there was a bunch of string bender stuff. The Everlys, eventually had Albert Lee playing with them, and Graham had some Clarence White stuff. So they wanted that flavor, and they wanted somebody to be their universal or their kind of unique musical hook. And by that time, I had a bunch of mentoring talks from Joe.
He's a really kind, really sweet guy, man.
Well, I don't know if you know anything about our background, but I have one of the first 3 guitars that Joe built when he was here in Nashville. He built a batch of 3.
That's awesome.
one of them went to me, and it was a double string bender guitar. We've actually learned a lot since that first guitar, for sure.
That's so
but
cool.
So Joe hooked me up with the Carnes, and it was that taste of these artists that wanted me to actually do something that was unique and that had a particular flavor to it. And when I got a taste of that, I was like, oh man, this is what I want to do. And I love these people. They're friends, you know? And I kind of came to the decision, how can I work my career where I can be asked to sound like myself and to contribute and to work with friends? And so I went, that's not necessarily what it's like doing sessions all the time. You can be a little bit anonymous, and there's a lot of dynamics about playing in the room and taking this role this day and that role this day. And I was like, my best stuff is my best stuff. When I'm asked to sound like Brent Mason, man, Brent does Brent way better than me. Brent Rowan did Rowan way better than me. Chris Lusinger did Chris. So it's like, okay, I think I need to develop a little bit more in this way, that I've become a stylist. And so that's what happened. So I did some sessions, but then I moved forward. So we spoke about Joe Glazer. Joe and I had some interesting conversations during my development period, in that I would play him stuff. Now, okay, so I've got these string. I don't know if you know that I play double bender guitar. So I've got a string bender on my B string, and I've got a G bender on my G string.
I didn't know you had both. I knew you had the one. And
I started playing that guitar. I didn't start on other guitars. I started playing a double bender guitar. So it's very much a part of my DNA when I pick up and I play a lot of other stuff that's not string bender. But in the beginning, I was listening to a lot of steel players. Joe let me go raid his vinyl collection and go through stuff. And I was transcribing Paul Franklin. He had an album, I think it was I forget, had a baseball theme cover to it, but I learned a couple of his songs verbatim with the steel licks and stuff like that. And I was trying to develop a style, because when I'd come and play for Joe, he'd go, yeah, man, that sounds just like Brent. That sounds just like this guy. Mm-hmm. He says, what is your stuff? And so we had some real kind of cerebral, intellectual conversations about that. And I have tried to apply a lot of that stuff in coming up with a style. And I think, there are some things I'm good at on guitar, some things I'm not so good at on, but if I have a strength, I think that would be it.
The double string bender and having your unique sound.
Yeah. I think more being a stylist.
Yeah. It probably feels a lot better as well. As having, feeling that, hey, I've got my own style and I'm really comfortable with that, as opposed to, and I'm really comfortable imitating other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just feel like I'm actually creating. I'm not mimicking.
Yeah.
I'm recreating what somebody else might have thought of. It's definitely my A stuff. It's the stuff that I and I'm not saying it's better than anything else, but it's the best stuff I do.
And and I think creatively, if that's what you're comfortable with, that's got to be what you play. You're a musician to create, and if that's what you're comfortable creating, then that's what you've got to play. It's not like you can play anything else, and feel good about your music.
Yeah. And what has been cool about the progression of my career is I've done so I did the stuff with Rick and Janice, and I was with them at Electric Asylum. And then they got a deal over at, they followed Jimmy Bowen over to MCA and had really great they brought me along as their token flavor over there. And man, I'd done some sessions. I'd done some little bitty demos here and a few records here and there. But then this was completely thrown into the big pond. Bowen is producing, and Reggie Young's there, and John Jarvis is there, and David Hungate's. But it's all the guys. And Bowen's got him. He's got like a big gallon baggie of pre-rolled Hawaiian pot. And he's in there chain smoking dope. I'm sitting across the chair from Reggie, and man, it was unbelievable experience. And it was good that everybody knew why I was there. I was there to be me.
That's
and
awesome.
to be the Carnes kind of token sound. And, it was cool.
It's funny you mentioned Reggie. I was thinking of Reggie earlier when you were talking about, they wanted me to sound like this person. I remember Reggie told me a story that he went into a session one time and they said, hey, we want you to play like Grady. What was his name?
Grady Martin.
We want you to try to play like Grady Martin. And Reggie looks around and he's the sweetest, as you know, sweetest. He's not a troublemaker. And he goes, Grady lives here. No, like, like get Grady if you wanted to, I'm not doing Grady Martin,
Yeah. I bet you Grady does Grady better than Reggie does. Grady.
Yeah.
But man, Reggie's great.
He's on.
And okay. So at this time, man, I was already a big Reggie fan, man. I had learned every lick he played on Just Sits Here and Drink from Haggard and all the Conway stuff and all that stuff. And man, he was the sweetest guy on those sessions. Oh, sweetest guy. And I hadn't seen him for years until there was a Louis Shelton. I don't know. Are you familiar with Louis?
No.
Louis was an LA session player. He was the guy that introduced Larry Carlton to the LA session scene.
Okay.
And he played the guitar on all the Monkees stuff, and he was he was in the Wrecking Crew and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And Louis took up residence in Nashville for a little while, and he had done a record called Nashville Guitars. And this is, man, way after the fact, where first time I met Reggie, I was just some little green guitar player, thankful to be on the session. Now, all of a sudden, I've developed quite a bit and actually am on another record with Reggie where Reggie's contributing a track, I'm contributing a track, Marcus Stevens is contributing a track, a bunch of great players that I love and respect were on this thing. It was a very, very cool thing to actually, I think I saw him on the street and he was like, Jimmy, love your track. I was like, Reggie, love your track. How about the back track? Yeah, man, it's all good.
Yeah, it's a sweet guy he is. So this is one thing good. It sounds like you really have gone out of your way. Whatever you're doing, you are looking for developmental steps. You're not kind of like just going through the motions. Whatever you're doing, you're looking at where can I grow here, and that's really a cool thing. Well,
I really like to do stuff, man, if it's okay. So now I'm about to turn 57 and I'm sad to say if I sit down too long, I will fall asleep. So if I'm not, I'll just So, man, I get up early and I start hitting the day and I like to do stuff. And so the arc of my career, a lot of this stuff I'm associated with Diamond Rio hits and the string bender guitar stuff. And so we came on the scene fast and furious. You had mentioned our first single went to number one. Yeah. I went from eating fish heads and rice to all of a sudden my jokes are funny and I'm cuter. I'm like, okay.
I like that.
So,
yeah, I love that.
But it is the truth. All of a sudden, you're the same person, but the perception of the people, that are encountering you is like you're something special, right? Yeah. So, man, it's crazy. So anyway, man, I actually got off track. What were we talking about?
No, I had said, I want to just finish writing that down. I went from eating fish heads and rice to all of a sudden my jokes got funny and I'm cuter. I like that, man. No, I was saying, I like that.
Development.
Yeah. It seems like, and I mean, in reality, what's the point of doing something unless you're looking for, what can I get out of this beyond a paycheck? I want to develop in, emotionally, spiritually, as a player, as a professional, as a performer, something,
absolutely.
There's got to be a warm and, there's got to be like an achievement in there or a goal or something besides, getting a check.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Okay. So I would be doing this as a hobbyist. If I wasn't working as a professional guitar player, I would be doing this as a hobby. I still love to do this. And so with Diamond Rio's arc of big success, I had a period where I was working so much because of our success and our new success. Everybody loves something new.
Yeah.
And we were new and successful. So the amount of interview requests, you're right on the heels of producing and turning in your first record, you're having hits, you're touring. All of a sudden, you're making money. You don't want to turn any tour dates down. And I've been signed to a publishing deal that has a quota to write so many songs. And so, man, I mean, I'm working. And we're doing a lot of radio appreciation shows, so lots of touring. And everything that we were doing was going to number one. Well, I will tell you that I got a little bit jaded about, is this all you have to do? This is it. And with that much time working with the guitar in my hand, I wasn't practicing. I wasn't playing. And I got a little bit, I wasn't too cool for the music, but I had fallen out of love with that. I guess jaded a little bit sour to that type of stuff. Well, let me tell you, there's nothing like a good career slump to smack you back into going, oh yeah, I am a non-singing guitar player that's having a really fabulous career, and playing guitar is awesome. Yeah. So ever since then, I continue to try to learn new things. I've recently had a period where, I'm awful at it, but I tried to learn, fell in love with the Django Reinhardt stuff, and it's a completely different right-hand technique, and have been hosting some gypsy jazz jams over here at the house and learning the Django stuff, which goes along with, we're reading a fake book, which is helping some of my reading chops. And it also kind of is the throwback to with Diamond Rio. Every time seems like we'd do anything, it would be 2 buses and a truck and a load in and a crew. And it's this huge, huge monster of a thing to go play a song. Well, playing the gypsy stuff, it's all acoustic and it's jamming at my house. It's like I did when I was a kid, and this is why I started doing that. I started playing tunes and having fun with people, and with my friends. And I think through that and through other things, working on repertoire and learning new techniques. And it's just, I still really, really love it. I've been working on stuff this week, as a matter of fact, trying to get some new solo pieces going. So.
That's great, man. Well, it's good to hear it. Yeah, staying busy and I agree with you. Nothing makes you more not grateful, but nothing makes you realize your place in life than having whatever you got taken away from you, man. I've been there, and it's humbling. How did you get connected with the guys in Diamond Rio? How did that whole thing come down? Was it just the guys from the Opry went out, and then, like you said?
When I was in college, I went up and I worked at Opryland. Mm-hmm. It was a theme park here in Nashville, and they had they billed themselves as the only theme park in the country with live stage shows. It wasn't kids singing to a track. It was live bands and live pit bands and stuff like that. And so I played banjo and strummed a little acoustic guitar for Country Music USA. And that was, I want to say that was maybe 1980. Mm-hmm. And from that, after that, I went with Mel McDaniel. And then the session stuff, and I was looking for something to do original, as we had talked earlier about the style and, I would like to make some records, but I didn't want to make anybody else's records. I kind of wanted to make my own records and stay in the country genre, since I had been by then developing as a country guitar player. So, there was an audition for the Tennessee River Boys, and I had no interest in going back to Opryland. And these guys had a show at Opryland, and I was like, oh, okay. You know what? I think I can go back to Opryland. I can make a check for 6 months and figure out what I want to do, and maybe I'll pick up another artist gig. Maybe I'll go back out on the road now. Maybe I'll do something else. But I was kind of in one of those no man land. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went and auditioned down at a cattle call audition. The steel player had Mel Deal had invited me down there. I was the last guy to go down to the Union, to the free rehearsal hall, and audition for him. And they were like, yeah, man, love it. Join this band. And I didn't tell them, but I was like, I just want to go and get the gig at Opryland, and I'll dig you guys
stick around
later.
For a little while.
Yeah, man. And now, 33 years later, here I am still playing with these guys.
But that's such a great lesson, though, if you think about it. And I just had this conversation with a player. If you do nothing, you never know. There's no downside to doing something ever. You know?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
Doing nothing is the worst thing you can possibly do to get out of a jam or figure out, you know, and like you did this thing and it wasn't what you wanted, but look at the door in a sense that it opened to change your whole life. Yeah.
Well, there is a finite thing, an answer to this. You know, I kind of learned this through skydiving. Skydiving it's a blue skies sport. You know, a lot of times if you're not jumping GPS, you have to spot the ground and you need to know where to get out of the plane and stuff like that. And so it's weather contingent. You know, you can't be jumping with cloud cover. And closest drop zone around here was an hour and a half away. And I'd call down there to the drop zone and, hey, Chris, what's it looking like there? We got blue skies. Well, it's a little patchy here. And, you know, we got some sucker holes, but we got this coming through. And I said, so I probably shouldn't come down. You're thinking I can't jump. And his answer was profound to me. He says, well, I know you won't jump if you don't come. You know, he says, that's for sure. If you don't do it, it won't happen. If you drive down here, you always have the possibility of something happening.
Yeah.
You know, and that goes through all other. If I don't call this guy to play with me, you know I won't play with him. But if I call, there's a possibility that I may be able to pick up something from this guy, you know?
Man, I love that. I really do. It's simple and it's really important. Yeah. While you're talking about skydiving, what got you into that, man? Because I mean, that's different, you know.
You know what? I had a health issue. I'm trying to think of which record we were cutting. It might have been the third record, or was the second record. I can't remember, but I had his tumor in my chest.
Oh wow!
And things got really, really dicey and really, really serious for a while. And I was at the oncologist, and I was doing all this type of stuff. And I can remember being in a twilight kind of sedation.
Yeah, oncologist is not a good word.
Yeah, I can remember this guy going in and doing a biopsy, and I'm in there. And he had like the worst bedside manner. You know, I'm in twilight. I'm still kind of conscious, but I'm a little dopey. And he's down in there taking a biopsy of some polyps in my lungs next to this mass to see if they were malignancies and stuff like that. And I can remember in there being kind of halfway asleep and him going, shit. I'm thinking, you know, not what you want to hear.
Yeah, from the oncologist.
Yeah, from the oncologist. Well, anyway, the long story short, all this crazy health issues, you know, that went on with this. And Diamond Rio they were champs through all this type of stuff. Well, when I healed up from that, I went, you know what? There's some stuff. And you know what? I actually answered all the questions, all the life and death stuff, you know, all the, you know, DNR stuff, all that stuff, where the guitars go, all that stuff.
How old were you when you had to deal with that?
I don't know. I'm approaching 30. I'm late 20s. So this is the third record of Diamond Rio. This is probably before we were cutting.
Wow.
And so, so I was great in the mullet days, big hits, all that stuff. And my health was an issue. So when I healed up from that, I said, man, you know what? I thought, or before I had healed up, I was with Claudia, you know, we're driving my girlfriend at the time. I said, man, you know what? This is really going poorly. I thought we would have been married. I thought I would have done a skydive. I thought I would have learned Steve Morris, Dixie Dregg's Pride of the Farm. You know, so there was like all these things that I was kind of having a little bit of regrets about not doing. And when I kind of came out of that on the flip side, I started actually, okay, that was a great life lesson. It's time to do some stuff. There were some things I wanted to learn. I married my wife. You know, you can't hardly say that to your girlfriend and all of a sudden heal up and go, hey, you remember when I was sick? And
I was just kidding.
So we got married, and I went through, and Diamond Rio had scheduled a block period off. I think it was a 10-day period off. And I went down there and went through the accelerated free fall program and got my A license and started jumping. And I love that, Craig. I'm not current right now, but I jumped hardcore there for a while. That's all I wanted to do.
Good for you, man. So are you with the same wife now, or is that the first wife?
No, that's Claudia. Yeah,
how long you been married now?
Dates are not my strong suit. It's been
ballpark it. 20 to 25, 25 to 30.
Yeah, I made 25 to 30.
Congratulations. That's a really, really nice accomplishment. Anybody who doesn't realize that, or who most people who have been married that long aren't married. Or if you're just starting, let me tell you, that's a bigger accomplishment than anything, and all the 14 Grammy nominations, man, because that's a lot of work. I know.
Yeah.
It's, I've been with my wife going on 26, and it's work. You got to work. You got to be on the same team, man. You can't. There's no way you're gonna get through that thing, and anyway, congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, I went through all that stuff, and I've kind of continued with that mantra of, man, now is the time to do this. So, and it was a great life. I will say that my life is much richer for going through that experience. I don't wish that on anybody.
Oh yeah. Are you okay? In the end, it was okay though. Everything worked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
That's great.
That's
great. Anything that you've done from that you never thought you would do? I'm sure you never thought you'd do 800 jumps, but outside of
and you know what has happened in those 800 jumps, man, if we, all of a sudden we crack a beer and we start telling skydiving stories, man, the things that I have done in that sport have just been astronomical. There's actually, I think, Country Weekly, Country Music Magazine, I was tied for their photo op of the year, because there's a great shot of me in the foreground with the shuttle taking off from Titusville, or I was jumping out of Titusville. I guess what is it over there, Canaveral?
Yeah, Cape Canaveral.
Cape Canaveral. We did a shuttle jump, so I'm in my goofy country music uniform, my Western shirt, my cowboy boots,
doing the sky jump,
with the space shuttle going off to its last mission to Mir in the background.
That's very cool, man.
Everything from that to, man, jump on a 747 and just, all kinds of, if you could imagine all the stuff that I've done. And a lot of this has been kind of exploiting or taking advantage of the celebrity nature that I got through Diamond Rio and having hits on the radio. Who doesn't want to jump with the country guy?
Yeah.
And that led to hanging out some with the Golden Knights, which is the Army's demo team out of Fort Bragg, and they got me hooked up with my DoD clearance to do all that other crazy stuff. And it's just, man, I've said yes to just about everything that's come down the pipe.
Well, man, you've done a lot of good from that, and I'd like to talk about that in a little bit, like with your charitable stuff. Actually, let's talk about it now. What you're involved with Brothers and Sisters. What prompted you? What you're with them a long time, like 20 years. What about that organization tugged your heartstrings?
Man, you know what? It's such a struggle. Okay, so I'm here, and it's 2-on-2. We've got two. Claudia and I have two boys, Max and Tank, and it's a struggle with us getting them to where they need to be, and us getting to work and back from. Just it can be quite an ominous task raising kids.
I've heard 3. You're preaching to the choir, bro.
Right? Okay, so my kids are 14 and 16 right now, and so
you're in the thick of it, man.
Well, yeah, Max just got his license. He just got my old white truck, so at least he's driving him. So he's got
the 53.
No. It's like a 2000. I don't know what year it is. It's an old white Dodge truck. Yeah. And at least he's got a job. He's making pizzas over at Marco's Pizza, and he's driving himself. So there's been a little bit of relief. But up until then, so my youngest son has cerebral palsy. So we've got some event, we've got some PT that happens after school, and plus he's in karate, and Max is doing, sports and stuff. So, man, it's the kid shuttle service after school every day, and it's all hands on deck for that. So I understand, having two parents. Well, being a single parent household, these people are just trying to make it through the day. And a lot of them are single moms, and they're raising kids, and they don't have the outlet, and they don't have the support system of male role models, and just somebody to give them a break, So with your kids, how old are your kids?
28, 26, and 18. And I got a 4-year-old granddaughter from my old one.
Okay. So there was a time where you guys were.
Yeah, it was middle school, high school. I mean, it wasn't me. I'm not going to lie. It was my wife. It was, high school drop off, middle school drop off, elementary school drop off, and then you got stuff after school, and then you got it's tough. It's really difficult.
So single parents, man, they're on at all times. So the relief that gives, and plus to help the kids out with doing stuff that maybe it's a low income family, maybe it doesn't have to be with big brothers, big sisters, but being able to provide time and effort to support the family thing, it's been a great thing. And I've learned about this because of a girl in our office, Renee Bierman. She was a big, and she had a little, and I think she's graduated several all the way through the program until they've been 18. And it was inspiring to see what she did. It was because of my travel schedule, I was never able to be a big to a little. I didn't have the time to do that. However, I did have time to spend with them. I did have time to raise some money. I did have the platform to try to encourage people to sign up and be bigs for big brothers and big sisters. And the more you spend around big brothers and big sisters, and you get to encounter with the littles and the bigs that are coming up with stuff, it's infectious. The more you want to do. We ran this charity marathon. First of all, it started with a golf tournament that we ran for a long time. Our lead singer in the band, Marty Rose, a great, great, great golfer, and also a really charitable guy. And all the guys in Diamond Rio are super guys. And we did that. And you know what, man, I am not a golfer. I like to do a lot of other stuff, and I've got a meticulous nature. And if I was a golfer, that's all I'd be doing.
You're too OCD.
A little bit. Yeah. I would just be, constantly on the course. I just know that would just, be the ruin of me. So now I will drive a beverage cart on a golf tournament, though, man. I'm good. But I got some smack talk, and I will go, stir up some crap, on the golf course. But so anyway, so when the golf course started wrapping up, her husband, Damian Griman, who I saw him, Dan Truman and I went and held the tape for one of the country music marathons. The tape for the elite runners to, I forget, it was a Nigerian, or it was a foreigner that came through and man, just blazing the trail. And the bus actually dropped us off right there at the time it was Adelphia Stadium, the Titan Stadium. And we held the tape. We got out there and he ran through that tape. And I'm sitting there and Renee's there, and she was kind of our handler on the date, and it's not too much longer. So this guy was a full marathon runner, and it wasn't too much longer. All of a sudden I see her husband, Damien, running through on the half. And I was like, what the hell? And I had my identity as I was the fitness guy around here. I'm running and going to the gym and stuff. What the hell is Damien? He just ran a half marathon. And she looks at me and she says, oh, yeah, he did great, didn't he? I was like, yeah, he did. And she says, I'm doing it next year. And I was like, no way. She says, yeah. I said, well, if you do it, I'm going to do it. And of course, as one of my keys to success, surround yourself with strong and intelligent women and just do what they say. That was the challenge. I was like, all right, if you do it, I'll do it. And then all of a sudden, our first year, I think we had 40 runners and we raised $20,000. And from there, we had some years we would have over 100 runners that would be taken through their first half or their first full marathon. We had coaches and we had sponsors, and it was all benefiting big brothers, big sisters. And eventually, we switched the charity over to United Cerebral Palsy, and I ran a couple of years for Tank, my son.
Yeah, of course.
And I actually pushed him in a chair for the full.
That's awesome.
Year, which was great fun. I was worried he's going to get bored out there for 4 hours on the course. So, man, let me tell you, in his chair, I had like 5 cans of silly string and cookies and sandwiches and all kinds of stuff for him to entertain himself.
He's with his dad too. He's, it's
4 hours, Greg. 4 hours.
That's tough, man, for you. It was funny. We did when I went to New York recently with Ann, with my wife, and we rode this 42-mile bike race. We don't cycle, but I did this in 11 with my older boy, who was 21 at the time. And so we're kind of like empty nesters now. So we had time to go and do that stuff. And so we went up there, and there was a guy. It wasn't a race. It was a ride, but there was a guy there, pulling an elderly woman to the whole race, 42 miles. That's a lot of, and he's got like one of those, like a Batman, like, Robin in the Batmobile, the scooter, and I was like, wow. And then, we didn't know, everybody was like, where is that? And then at the end, the next day on some of the forums, he said, hey, did you see this guy? He was pulling his grandmother. She'd always wanted to see that. And she was very elderly and couldn't ride. So, and I just thought of that when you said that. And I would think the time that Tank had and the time that this woman had meant more to them than you probably would ever know.
Oh man, it was great. Our mandolin player is a great cabinet maker as well. And so he had made these big wooden wings for the side of his chair that looked like we were really flying.
That's
and
cool.
we had put a bunch of stuff, because the Country Music Marathon, I don't know if you know about this, but it's one of the elite races and one
cool.
of the rock and roll marathon series. So at least for the half, every mile there's a band set up. So
that is every mile.
Every mile there's a band set up. It starts getting lonely there for the full guys. As soon as you leave Metro Center and get on the backside, it gets a little desolate out for the full marathoners. But it could be maybe a bass player and a guitar player, or it could be the full Belmont Church of Christ, band or whatever. And so, Baptist. I'm going to get there. All the Baptist guys are going to kill me for this. Church of Christ. So, anyways, it's a very, very thing. So we put say hello to Tank or give Tank a yell out. So the whole time people are yelling for Tank, and it was incredible. I will tell you, pushing somebody though for a full marathon, man, you got me on the hills, but I'm going to kick your butt on the downhill because my feet are just touching down every once in a while.
Yeah. Wow. Was your son a preemie?
He was, yes, he was a preemie. He was born 2 pounds 6 ounces.
My younger boy, 3 pounds 1 ounce, and he has mild cerebral palsy now. He's 26, and he, God bless him. I don't know how he did it, man. He swam for 3 years in high school, ran track for 4 years, and he wrestled for 4 years. And he's got no legs because,
does it manifest in his legs?
Yeah, it manifests. And as he's gotten older, it's more overt, but I tell you, I give him credit because, this is about you. I'm just sharing this. I apologize that I just think this story is inspirational. 3 years, he didn't win a match wrestling, and he's got a good work ethic. He was the first guy there, last guy, and he loved it. In the last year, they got a new coach, I think they got a new coach, and the guy wanted him to drop lower weight than he had wrestled the year before. And he says, Dad, look, I got to drop this low weight. I said, Casey, you know what, man, you've given 100%. If this isn't for you, I support you, but just do it once and see how you feel. And then if you want to leave, man, I'm 100% behind you.
You remember what weight class it was?
I think he had wrestled like 135, and they wanted him to go down below to 130, like 128 or something like that. And he's very tall, lanky. Anyway, so he gets down, wins his first match. First match he's won in 3, which I don't know. Talk about, how the hell that's a big sacrifice, that sport. And man, he won 5 matches that year. So I was, so you have kids like Tank and Casey that do things that you see adults bitching about every day. Oh, I can't do this. I can't get to the gym. I can't do. And that can't word should be banned.
Tank with cerebral palsy. He's in karate. And man, I remember the first. And so he's got mild cerebral palsy. It has mostly manifested in his legs, and so his hamstrings and everything. For any of the listeners that don't know about cerebral palsy, it's a neuromuscular condition. It's not a disease that you get cured from. That's constantly sending messages to your muscles to contract, and so they grow short. And we've been through some big stuff with Tank. He had one surgical event where they cut off the tops of his femurs and the bottoms of his tibias, and untwisted his legs and put his feet back on and the hamstrings and stuff. He hasn't bitched about any of that stuff. And doing his first karate kicks with those hamstrings and calves and glutes all tight, he does one kick, he lands on his butt. And he's kind of worked through that, but not anymore. Yeah. No complaints, loves it, and we don't treat him any different.
That's the key, I think. We never did either, man. ever. Always put him in sports. And yeah, I think that was important, you know? So
Yeah.
Anyway, man, thank you for sharing all that.
Sure.
Are you originally from Michigan? Because you mentioned Birmingham, Michigan. Is that where you're from?
No, my dad was outspoken, so we moved around a little bit. I was born in Minnesota.
Wait a minute. My dad was outspoken, so we moved around. What does that mean? What is that politically correct way of saying what? I'm not that smart.
He had low tolerance for incompetence with the people that he worked. My dad was a research scientist.
Okay.
And a metallurgist, and he was absolutely no common sense. He was, he's like one of these guys. He's like a folk hero, where absolute brilliant guy, but a wild man. And just, he was, he had it when he was with General Motors, had been on the team that invented the catalytic converter. And he was one of the guys with, worked on, the fighting mirrors when Reagan had the Star Wars program. Had consulted on the Lynn drum with Roger Lynn. He was a material scientist, and piezoelectric ceramics were his specialty. As a matter of fact, he made me my first banjo pickup out of a piece of piezo tape. Nobody had heard about this piezo stuff before, but there's this thing that we taped to. It sounded awful, but he had the deal about converting mechanical force into electronic output. So anyway, and as a result of just working with people, and when people couldn't keep up, or he would have an administrator above him or something like that, man, he would have low tolerance for that and quit.
Okay.
I was born in Minnesota.
Okay.
Moved out to Southern California. He worked a little while out there, and he worked for a munitions company up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then we moved to Birmingham, Michigan, and he worked in the auto industry. He worked for Generous Motors.
So you grew up most of your childhood in Birmingham, Michigan?
No, I moved there, I think I went there to go to the 6th grade. So part of it in California, part of it. So I went 6th grade through high school and moved to Nashville.
Okay. What was you growing up like in general? What was your childhood like?
Well, it was, I didn't know any better, but it was, we had a bit of a dysfunctional household. Yeah. We had some alcoholism in our household, and I was a classic, the enabling fixer part of the relationship there. And, I took some of that codependency on in and starred in some great versions of the classic codependent, including my first marriage. But, I'm recovering from all that stuff. And I have twinges of wanting to fix people and to do that type of stuff. But, I've done enough research that I know what that is.
Did you have any brothers or sisters, or were you an only child?
I had an older brother. I've got one older brother.
What was
2 years older than
What was his role in that? Was he involved in that, or?
No, you know what? My perception of my brother at that time was he was going. My brother's a type A, super high achieving, great guy, but he was not only the sports star and the sophomore that made the varsity baseball and football team, but he was also on flex hours at school because he was scholastically brilliant and it's just super, super high achieving. Got his master's in record time and was Mr. Mom while getting his PhD at Stanford, and has pretty much, so it appears like none of that. He didn't have time to pay attention to any of that stuff.
Wow. Well, you're a type A though, Jimmy.
I'm type A adjacent. I'll tell you
what is that? That's a subcategory I don't know. Educate me.
Well, it's that I was, my brother's a type A, and so I know what that looks like, and I'm not quite that.
Oh, okay, so you're like an A- or something.
I'm an A-.
That's funny. That book, I grew up, my dad was not an alcoholic, but he was just a raging asshole, and he was violent, and just that he had all the symptoms of an alcoholic, but he didn't drink. And I read that book. That was like the first self-development book I read. I don't know. I probably went to see a therapist at some point in my early 20s, and that was one of I remember that book, because he had me read that book, even though I didn't have alcoholism, because the concepts, I was like, wow, what a good book this is.
It is a great book. And, it was recommended by a buddy of mine. He was actually a great musician, Eric Silver. And he was having his relationship problems as my first marriage was going bonkers. This happened when I was getting out of my first marriage because I had realized that I had married a version of my mother, and I was trying to fix her and manipulate her into, being loved in a chaotic situation. It's all this classic stuff.
Yeah.
If I had known ahead of time, these are my triggers. And I went to my first Al-Anon meeting, and we all think we're so unique, and and the episodes of my marriage were just so bizarre that surely nobody else. I was in that first Al-Anon meeting, Craig, and it was just like, wait a minute, that guy's telling my story. Wait a minute. And all around the room, I'm hearing this story. I just felt so pedestrian at that moment. It's like, I'm not alone. I'm not a unique guy, so.
It's really funny you say that. I had the exact same experience on my first marriage. It was and the day I realized I have no right to ask this woman to change, I left shortly thereafter. I ended the marriage because it was like a 1 million pound weight lifted off my shoulders, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, not only do I have no right, but that feels great. like I don't want to fucking do that anyway. It's like,
no.
It's like,
it's regardless, man, my ending the marriage for me was super, super quick and very specific. I remember somebody breaking down, well, when you're first married, you're newlyweds, and there's this, and then the new wears off, blah, 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 blah. And they kind of chronicled all these years, and they said, and then after about 5 years, you settle into a groove of what this is going to be. And it was that 5-year mark that I went, oh man, this is crap. I am out of this.
Yeah, mine was really similar.
Yeah, and I moved on and have had no regrets.
Good for
Usually
you,
when somebody says they're getting a divorce, my first thing is, congratulations. Mine was awesome.
Yeah, mine was, I had my sons are from, that was tough, but I wound up getting custody of them. So it all worked out. Wow. That was intense.
I'm here for the full experience.
Yeah, man, the full experience. We're having it. What made you like country so much over other genres? Because you were like totally immersed in this.
Okay, so I came to country. It's interesting. So when I was playing bluegrass, I started playing traditional banjo, and then as I was learning banjo, I got more interested in the guys that were getting outside the box. Tony Trischka was a guy that had done the chromatic style, and Bill Keith had done this melodic style of banjo, and they were just playing the same cookie cutter Earl Scruggs stuff, which I love Earl Scruggs. This is not a disparaging thing about Earl Scruggs. I mean, cut my teeth on that stuff. But they were exploring playing jazz, and Alan Monday was doing some of that stuff. And so there was a term back in the 70s, it was called newgrass, newgrass revival.
Newgrass revival, yeah.
And they were progressive, where you started hearing rock influences on the harmonic structure of that stuff, and jazz. And so I was already progressing out of traditional bluegrass. And so if bluegrass isn't enough of a niche and small market, well, an offshoot of that is also very, very, it's tiny. And so through the jazz stuff, I started getting in loving Western swing. And I was always trying to impose the banjo on these music. Now, banjo can sound pretty cool, but it's a harmonic instrument. It's not a percussive instrument that sounds very staccato. So you can't do any legato lines with it. The amplitude is very, very short. It's up, pink, and the song, and it's not a big ringing thing. So I started, getting a little bit more interested in maybe switching over and getting some smooth things. A lot about sonics. So I came to country music through listening to the Western swing players, the Western jazz players, and they all came out of playing country. It's like if country is the day job, they would swing, for fun.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So I was kind of coming through the fun side of these guys, and then I started exploring, what the traditional things were. Now I was still listening to it. All this is retro stuff for me. This is Bob Wills, and this is Johnny Lee Wills, And then moving to Nashville, and Joe made me this Telecaster. I started listening to some of the guys that he had prescribed me to listen to. I had Danny Schaefer, another buddy of mine, was first string bender guitar player I'd ever heard of, who was really had the sense of Clarence White in his hands. Clarence being the Parsons White string bender and played in the Byrds. And so I went over to Joe's, and Joe let me tape off, I think, a Freddie Weller record that Clarence had done, and Nashville West that Clarence had done. And I remember the White brothers from playing with the Kentucky Colonels from back. They had a bluegrass band. They were one of the bands that played on the Andy Griffith show, and I had some Kentucky Colonels stuff. You remember the Darlings was one band, and then the Kentucky Colonels was the other.
Yeah, that's an old.
And I want to say Doug Dillard was in the Colonels too, or they turned another offshoot into the Dillards and stuff. But anyway, so I listened to that type of stuff, and so that was kind of my into country music, But it's always been through listening to the instrumentalists. It wasn't because this song changed my life or I grew up and my folks played this. Man, my dad was an avid music listener, but gosh, it was all over the place at our house. He was kind of an audiophile. And so there would be these Latin guitar players, La Cindia Tablajares, these Brazilian Indians playing this crazy stuff, and then a hollering record from Spivey's Corner, North Carolina, and then Mickey Finn doing Dixieland, all over the stuff.
That's really diverse, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you've been at this a long time. You're not as old as most guys. You got a lot as many years experience as guys, 15, 20 years older than you because you started so young. What advice, assuming, younger you is willing to listen, what advice would you have liked to hear that you wish you could have gone back and given yourself?
Well, man, it depends on what arena of advice we're talking about. As a player, as a person, as
both.
An artist,
as a person and as a player.
I don't know. I think our business and music in general, we're connecting with people, and so I think relationships are very, very important. And I think treating people well, and taking care of your relationships and being open to meeting people. Man, it's a really, really, really stupid thing, but just smiling and making eye contact is a really, really big deal. I learned this.
That's not a stupid thing, man.
But it's when you tell someone, well, what kind of advice would you like? Smile and make eye contact. That sounds a little trite, but since I've done that, I actually made a New Year's resolution. My New Year's resolutions are a little bit avant-garde. And one of them was to make eye contact with people, because I think we talked earlier in our conversation about entitlement and some of the stuff when we were having hits and I was a little bit over it. We'd have fans at the hotel, and I would have selective hearing, Jimmy, pretend like I couldn't hear him, and I wouldn't make eye contact. Just be a jerk,
Yeah.
And all people wanted to do was just say hello, pretty simple. And so I learned through my New Year's resolution, realizing that that's what I was going to do. I was going to make eye contact with as many people as possible. And it diffused so much of the stuff and so much of the whatever inconvenience I thought was going to be there wasn't actually there. You make eye contact with people, and it was actually, if I thought it was inconvenient to interact with somebody, you say hello, you make eye contact. It's a much quicker encounter than if you avoid them this time and avoid them this time and sneak out here and do this. All of a sudden, it's just super dark thing for no good results.
When did you start doing that?
Oh man, I don't know. Man, I judge all this stuff as far as I'm thinking about my hairdo, Craig. I hear you.
I
have a mullet at the time or not. Yeah, I think, it's probably about the second or third record. Maybe between the third and fourth record, I would say.
A reason I ask is because you're so open I only know you this way, and I don't know you very well, very long, obviously. But so it's hard for. I'm thinking, wow, you know.
Oh well, I've had some dramatic changes in my life. I think that there were some things that I could do better.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, for instance, okay, here now. This hadn't been that long ago. We did our first, artist cruise event. We've been pitched these. Hey, come on out here and do this country music cruise. So Alabama was going on the road. They wanted to have Alabama and friends, and we were early in our career. We toured with Alabama, so we're like, all right, this would be good. And our lead singer was always, I don't want to go on a cruise. I don't want to do this. You want that thing in Sweden, that big festival? I don't want to do that. If I want to go do these things, I'll take a vacation and go do that. I don't want to be around all these people and stuff. And so we said yes, finally, in the legacy portion of our career, I would say that we're at. Yeah. If chubby is to fat, legacy is to has been. So we are in the legacy portion of our career. I
wouldn't say you're has been.
That's why I'm saying legacy, man.
Yeah, legacy is,
So anyway,
latter stages.
Yes. So we booked the cruise, and I start prompting Marty. I says, dude, I got a plan. Because he was all, I was worried he's going to hang out in his hotel room and just miss the experience of going on the cruise,
Yeah.
So here's my plan. I'm going to make as much eye contact and talk to as many people as I can right off the bat. It's going to happen on the gangplank through the boarding of this thing. I says, you watch. Inside of 36 hours, people will be running from me. Here's that happy guy. Oh my God, Jimmy, let's go. I said, I'm going to have a great trip. And that's exactly what happened. And he actually, I started about telling him what I was going to do about 6 months out. He did the same thing. All of a sudden, he and his wife, I see them, they're in the lounge. They're doing Sonny and Cher karaoke one night. I was like, never in a million. But I think that he would be just full contact with this cruise. So.
That's great. Yeah. You know what? When you do like happy stuff, if it's out of your comfort zone, it doesn't take long to realize, wow, this is not really painful. This is actually enjoyable. There's a lot of upside to this, and there's a lot less stress, and blah, blah, blah.
And there's another thing that I did. One of my running pals, we train for all these distance runs. So us guys out there training together, it's actually a co-ed group. I say guys, all of us runners out there, we have these long conversations, and my buddy Mitch and I, we get out there and we talk psych a lot. It sounds like you like a lot of psych, right? Well,
yeah, I like to, I don't have time for for example, this show, I'm not going to ask you, do you play 9s or 10s ever? Shoot me if I do that, I want to know what's going on. How can I get to know you, and knowing your string tension does not contribute to that.
Well, so we get out there, and it's so interesting. And he's kind of, as long as I've known him, he's either into psych or some sort of divinity discussion. So, and one of the things, he's also a multilinguist, and he said, man, he says, this is interesting when he says the Latin culture and the Caucasian culture are two different people. He says, you can tell when you're on an elevator, all the Caucasians see that confined space and they're uncomfortable and they try to isolate. He says, in the Latin culture, they look at that confined space and they try to interact. They look at it as an opportunity to interact. So I made the vow one time going out on the road. I says, all right, Mitch, I'm going Latin on the elevators. And then let me tell you, I to this day, I try to strike up a conversation with anybody I can on an elevator. And it's remarkable how you see people's trapezius relax and eye contact happen, once you first, we play a lot of casinos. So I see a lot of luggage. And is that all the money? You dragging out all this money, and immediately, oh no, I lost it. And it's been a really interesting kind of psych experiment to who will engage. Usually people will engage.
Yeah. Most people will talk. Yeah. Most people are, if you're nice, most people are nice back, no one's going to be bad, So I mentioned gear. Let's talk about gear for 5 minutes, since this is a guitar show.
We talk like nothing about guitar, right?
No, this is just like the guise of guitar show. It's what's your go-to? Man, you have so many cool looking guitars back there, and I usually see you playing a Tele. Is that your what's your go-to guitar now? What other few guitars would round out your top?
Well, I've got one of Glazer's guitars. Actually, I think I've got about 6 or 7 that Joe's built.
And he doesn't build them anymore either.
No, but what have I got from him? I've got 2 Strats, I've got 2 Teles, and he's reworked several things. He and Ken Parker. I had an endorsement with Parker Fly for a while, and they had actually mounted a double bender on the back of one of Ken's Frankenstein Parkers.
Oh, wow.
And I've got from Fender a Bajo Sexto, and we stuck a couple of benders on that, as well as a lap steel. I think Sonny Landreth actually ended up with the lap steel with a couple of benders on that as well. But I've got this one ash body Telecaster that's called Maybell because the first song I ever learned to play on the guitar was the Wildwood Flower, and Mother Maybell had the Wildwood Flower, and I learned it in her style, which was the drop thumb style. And it's where she was like one of the first people to play the melody and the chords at the same time. So da da da, random da 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 da. Are you familiar with the Carter family with Mother Maybell? I'm
not familiar with Mother Maybell. No.
Well, the first lead guitar player that they had was Chet Atkins.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Carter family, she was kind of the matriarch of the Carter family, and she was the mother of June Carter Cash, Johnny's wife. So anyway, and it's got a picture of Mother Maybell on it, and that's
what's on there. Okay, I was trying to figure out who that was.
That's Mother Maybell, and it's my tribute to Mother Maybell. And the
very
first
cool,
I
man.
Learned to play, and actually, we Rio went in, and for our first record, we were cutting a song that Larry Cordell and Larry Shell wrote called "Mama Don't Forget to Pray for Me," and it's been rewritten a little bit to make it a little bit more accessible, but it was written about guys that were traveling the road and having success, and sometimes how hollow that can feel, And I was like, Mama, don't forget to pray for me. I love Mother Maybell. And so Chris Skinker at the Country Music Hall of Fame, she was the librarian at the time, let me go through all the Carter family stuff. And I found my favorite picture of Mother Maybell and had it blown up into 11 by 14 and colorized, and we put it on that guitar, and it's, in a broadcaster form because I didn't want to have a big neck pickup on Mother Maybell's face. And it was kind of made as a guitar for a video, but the planets absolutely aligned. Now, lo and behold, Joe had been saving a neck for me. He had saved a neck for myself and for Skaggs and maybe one for Steve Warner. And that guitar was built around the same time as Ricky's purple guitar and Steve's red guitar.
Okay.
And you know what? It's like when that thing came together, it's a great guitar. It's a great Telecaster. When you don't even have to plug into anything. You hit a chord on that and you go like, man, wow, this is like an acoustic guitar or something. It really sounds great.
So is that your number one? Do you take that on the road?
Yeah, I use all my favorite stuff whenever I can.
Good for you. So road, studio, and then just playing.
Yeah, I've got the guitar that I cut our first hit on, Meet in the Middle. It's out on the road. It's detuned because I cut a bunch of open string double bender stuff on Meet in the Middle, and I can't really just transpose it into a different key and it still sound the same. But it's out on the road as well as Maybell. And, I think life's too short to play, and as much as I play, to play stuff that's almost as good as what I've got at home. So why not play what I like?
Yeah, yeah. So you got that. So the Glazer Tele is your number one. What's 2 and 3?
No, I would say that other great Glazer Tele. I've got an acoustic guitar here that was built for me back in the mid-'70s by John Grevin. And it's an incredible acoustic guitar. It's a custom guitar. John used to work for George Gruen, and he broke off from Gruen and was making guitars here in Nashville. So you remember the old Martin F-hole guitars? Well, this is, if you take the sides and the curve of the Martin F-hole guitars and the depth of that, and you put a slightly arched back and a flat top and a round hole. That's what that guitar is. So it is. So if you have a double O and a triple O Martin, this would be like a quadruple O. So the inside diameter is about the same as a Dreadnought, but in a different proportion. And it's a spectacular guitar.
And that's from the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So that's like really seasoned. It must feel so good for you to pick that up.
It's been on almost every note of acoustic guitar that we've recorded. Yeah. I've got a Collings that I played on something, but everything else other than maybe a high strung or something like that has always been the Grevin. So I got that. I tell you what, I've recently got a PRS, after being so far down the Tele line, I've got this PRS and it's absolutely incredible. I work with people over at PRS and they were excited to have me on board as a guy with their guitar. I'm not a big endorsement for it. Mm-hmm. I actually like to play what I like to play. Yeah. And, man, I just simply don't have room enough to have free stuff that I don't like. Yeah. And PRS came out with a version of their classic PRS that has the same string scale as a Telecaster. And that's the guitar that I play, and it's ridiculous. All the tension and all the string bends and everything is the same. And actually,
there's a bender on there? No,
benders on this. Yeah. Which is funny. So I've done a lot of bender stuff, but you don't have to play a bender. It's so interesting. I put up a few videos where I was sitting down. I'm not doing any benders, and they go, "Man, that was a great video. I guess I'm gonna have to get a bender now."
And that's so funny, man.
No, but the PRS, it was amazing because PRS is Paul Reed Smiths have been around forever. Yeah, I get this guitar, and it's the highest quality instrument that I've got. I mean, just the quality of the build on this, the electronics, man, when you switch the switch, I mean, everything about this guitar, is amazing. And I'm very, very sensitive to intonation. And if a guitar doesn't play in tune or if a guitar is difficult to play, I'll either get rid of it or I will spend a great deal of money to have it fixed. I've got the Grevin guitar that I told you was such a great acoustic guitar. Had the old Randy Wood fret scale on it. It was notoriously playing out of tune. It was this great guitar. On that, I had Joe pull all the frets, fill in the fingerboard, and recut an actual scale. Wow. And he's actually compensated the nut on that in a couple of my tellies. I don't know if you're an electric guitar player, right?
Yeah. Joe is brilliant, man. That guy is nothing he can't do.
He is. He's done that for a 1920s National that I've got that, had this great sound, but I would only use it in the studio. And I'd record a half a line, retune the guitar for the next position, record a half a line, and I'd never kind of want to use it, but it sounded amazing. Same thing. I had him pull the frets, fill in the fretboard, cut a proper intonated scale. And on several of my favorite guitars, he's also intonated the nut.
That's amazing.
Do you ever have trouble on your electric guitars when you tune them up, the G string, you tune it up? It's always pitch, and then at the second fret, it will be flat. Yeah. Right?
It's always a G.
Well, Joe has compensated that nut for me to where it, in a sense, takes the idea diminishes, the effect diminishes as you go up the scale. But it takes that by putting a little bit of extra nut, it makes that first fret a little bit smaller and the second fret. So now I can tune the G string. It's in tune open. It's in tune at the first fret. It's in tune at the second. I play my A chord, and that A is in tune. I don't have to tune the G string flat in order to get it. Because life is too short to be fighting guitars.
I know. I don't. The only time that I only have those problems with Gibsons once in a while. Never. I hate to say it because I love my Gibsons, but I never have these problems with Fenders.
Yeah. Well, and he's compensated a couple of my acoustics too because I like to play in drop D. And a lot of times, if I go up to the fifth fret on the low, at that point, D string, it'll play sharp. So by putting a little nut compensation, I can have the open string in tune, and I can have the fifth fret in tune as well. I didn't discover this until, I'm saying late in life, still 8 years ago. But it's been a life changer for me.
That's great, man. So it makes a big difference when you feel good with what you're playing, especially at your level, man, because you're laying shit down. You don't have time to screw around. Musically, if I asked you to pick your top 3 CDs or albums in no particular order, just for now, knowing this could change tomorrow, what would be your knee-jerk reaction?
Well, I will say that if I ever want to, if we're ever playing, what's that amazing cut? It's always Ella Fitzgerald, Round Midnight. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the most. Are you?
Yeah.
The outro on that and that whole cut is like if there has ever been a better vocal recorded, I haven't heard it, and if it is better, it doesn't matter at that point. And I don't know if I guess would be for maybe Foggy Mountain Banjo, Earl Scruggs. That's the first album I heard that Scruggs did. And probably have to be something that Clarence did, maybe Ode to Billy Joe. That's, I think, on Nashville West. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's probably the most remarkable. It's string bender, but it's about the phrasing that he plays on that I just go, oh my gosh, it's just magic.
Is that from the movie? Wasn't there that movie?
No, it would be from the Byrds live recording, and it's an instrumental, Ode to Billy Joe, that he does on telly, and it's remarkable. It's really his phrasing is incredible. As a matter of fact, here in the studio, I've actually I'm sitting on we built the studio in our house when we had this house built, and they poured a concrete floor, and I've got my 3 heroes acid etched into the floor, and it's Ella and Earl and Clarence in a tile pattern.
That's cool, man. Very cool.
It's like, I don't know if you can see this.
No, let me see it. See. Oh yeah, that's cool, man. He's got, so the tiles it's acid etched, just like you said.
It's actually it's a concrete, but they made it look like tile, and it's all acid etched.
That's really cool. I've never seen that.
Yeah, well, they kind of developed it here at the house. They mixed
that's cool.
the acid with K-Flex, which is the thickening agent from ketchup, and then did a silk screen. I got them the photos and stuff.
You could tell you have all these, like I see, like your dad's influence on you, like with this stuff. You have all these influences on you, man. With you got a little nerdy on me there. I was like, I was hoping you weren't going to start telling me, about the chemical reactions. You would have totally. Well, when the sulfuric acid hits the H2O, and you would have left me in the dust on that one, Jimmy. I would have left the room on that one.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, what is a very tough question? What do you like most about yourself, man?
Oh, probably my Telecasters.
I've heard your podcast, Craig. I knew it was coming, baby.
You knew it was coming. What do you really like most about yourself?
Oh man,
I know it's a tough question.
You know what? I think the things as I look back over my life, I like the fact that I've continued to develop. I'm a much different guy than I was 20 years ago and 20 years before that.
Man, amen to that. Good for you.
I have dealt with great amounts of insecurity, and I do not feel that stuff,
That's a weight off your shoulders. I'm willing to bet.
It's still there, but I'm a much more confident person. I feel pretty comfortable in my own skin.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
How about the flip side? If there's one thing you could change, what would it be?
No, if there's one thing that I could change, man, I guess I wish I could run faster. My foot turnover.
Great answer. I like that. Tell me something about yourself, Jimmy, that people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Oh, okay. Well, my friends know this, and my family knows this, and my wife's family in particular. I am not a hugger, and I have a touch thing that I've evidently had for since I came out of the womb. my mother told Claudia, he says, "Oh yeah, used to have to put him in his car seat to feed him. He didn't want to be held."
Really?
And, yeah,
wow.
and man, okay, so this is like God's some sort of evil curse on me. I do a meet and greet every night.
You do a meet and greet? Oh my!
Greet at the show every night, and I've got these people and these fans. You
have gloves on?
Oh, yeah, come in. And they start. The big open arms coming in for a hug, and I'm just like, why would you think this is appropriate? I don't know you, but for some reason, it's the way country music goes. And it's like this sick curse. I don't want to hug my family, let alone somebody that's, been sitting out at the sun at the Hodag in Wisconsin.
This is God having a laugh with you, man. For sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I talked to you a little bit about Renee from our office, man. She knows that. And she comes every time I see her. She comes and, it doesn't matter if Claudia's there or not. She hugs me hard, and it's not a touch. It's an embrace, it's a squeeze, and she will hike a leg on me, and I'm like, Renee, you are killing me here.
You need a stunt hugger.
Oh, man.
You got to hire a stunt hugger. And they come over, so just point to the guy, and then you just say hello. So what do you do? And do you have gloves on? How the hell do you handle that when they come over to?
Dude, I give it a really strong bang, with the hug, not a chest bump, but I mean, I give it a really quick embrace and a quick let go. I don't push them away, but they know that there's a little communication of, there's your hug out there.
So if I meet you, if I'm up in
now, I will tell you this, I have developed a handshake block for the hug too. And it comes straight down. People coming in, and I will throw the handshake right out in the middle. And occasionally you go, "Oh no, bring it in." I'm like, yeah, okay.
So dude, if I see you in Nashville at the end of this month, and I go to shake your hand and I grab you, you're gonna.
No, I'll give you the patent meet and greet.
I want to get a picture of that. I want to get a picture like this, but you won't be. My arm won't be around you. It'll be like above you or something.
Yeah, we'll have a little gap.
This is me and Jimmy O, and then people are like, "What the hell?" This would just be a funny photo.
Yeah, don't touch me.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, man. What's hilarious that you have to do the meet and greets. All this is like, what makes this funny is the meet and greets, man.
Every gig.
And you can't not do, because they're paying more. They're paying all the money for the meet and greet for the VIP.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh wow. So I'll ask this question: what's a perfect day for you? Not being hugged, but what else?
Oh man, you know what? My day starts early, usually with a trail run, or with a trip to the gym. I usually do both in a day.
You train first thing in the morning, right?
I train first thing in the morning. I don't like to carry debt, and so if when I train first thing in the morning, it puts a W, everything can go to hell for the rest of the day, but I've had a win already.
I know exactly how you feel.
And if I continue to push off a workout till later in the day, it starts to feel like that, and it starts to feel like a burden. I actually like to do this stuff. I like to throw the weight around in the gym, and I like to run. I like to trail run. I've gotten to where I don't really like to road run. It feels like paying penance. But anyway, that's something that I really enjoy doing. It's not a burden. It's not something that I should do for myself. And then, man, I love to have a cup of coffee, and then play some guitar. Stuff can really go south after that. It's
See, now you got a couple of wins on your belt, so it's cool. I get you, man. I know that thing about not carrying debt. I didn't train this morning today, and I got to go this afternoon, and that's exactly how I feel. Like I got a debt now that I got to get paid.
As a result of doing that, I get somewhat indulgent with my training, and I'm trying to be a good dad and a good husband. So I try to do that indulgent stuff on my time, not on our time. So I have, I get up at 3 or 3:30, and we will either start a trail run at 4:30 or 5:15.
Oh, you're up at 3:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Holy smokes!
Because I like to have a cup of coffee before I go.
What time do you go to sleep?
Oh, my schedule's fluid, so I operate really well on 6 hours, 6.5, maybe a little bit better, but I usually don't get 6.5. I'm usually a 6-hour guy.
Wow.
So
wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
Don't tell the union. They will kick me out of the positions.
Wow.
I will tell you, this is, you hear guys about bragging about, I get up at this time of day. I'm not bragging about it. I'm doing it because that's my condition. That's my situation in life.
Yeah.
The things that I like to do. Had I had my druthers, I would like to get a little bit more sleep maybe. And I would like to, start a little bit later. And it's not a normal time. I've got some buddies of mine. My good buddy, Chad Jeffers, he plays with Carrie Underwood, and Chad and I are good buds. And all of a sudden, we will be crossing paths, in the middle of the night. He hasn't gone to bed yet, and I'm up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're sending him an email. He's responding. You just woke up. He's about to go to bed.
Yes,
wow.
He said it.
Yeah. I couldn't handle that. I'd sooner get up at 3:30 than go to bed at 3:30. That I could tell you, man.
I can get a lot done.
Oh yeah. If I don't sleep well, I'll do that, but I don't prefer it. I'd like to get 6.5 hours a night.
So if I hit the gym and if I do a run with my friends, that gets me back in time before the boys are off to school, and I can help them off. And then as soon as they're off to school, it's time to go to work.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, you have kids. You got to get that stuff done. Who's had the biggest influence on you?
Man, I don't know. I've had a lot of influences. My family, my dad, which, you know what, I didn't realize until the older I get how much I'm like my dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not in the outspoken part. However, I'm direct,
Oh, you're super direct. I love it. No.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of time for, just I'm not a flowery guy when it comes to that. But probably the old man. We talked about Glazer. He's had a profound influence on me at a particular time in my life that it was, it really, really hit home. I don't see Joe a lot anymore, but when we do, he's a great friend, been a friend for a long time.
That's nice, man. Let's talk about your dad. What's the most important thing he taught you?
Oh, man. He never gave me any lessons. He actually gave me a couple of lessons, but they were all the wrong things I won't be teaching my kids. I guarantee you that. My dad, I remember he told me he was working at the tech center at General Motors, and he comes home and he says, man, you're going to have to remember this. And he was in eating jalapenos, and, he was a big bravado kind of guy, big, challenge kind of guy. He's eating jalapenos in the lab with one of his technicians. He says, man, you got to wash your hands before you go to the bathroom if you've had jalapenos. And I was like, what do you mean? He says, man, I was eating some jalapenos. I had to go take a leak. I went in there. I took a leak. I washed my hands. He says, I got halfway back to the lab before the jalapenos juice hit my member. He says, this is a profound thing. Do not ever do this.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, okay.
Oh,
probably
wow.
won't have to share that with the boys. And
yeah, that's not a lesson you want to learn firsthand. Wow.
Yeah. Like I say, Craig, he was a wild man. I remember I was seeing this girl in high school, flirting around with her, and he's like, well, why don't you bring her home? It's like, I didn't really want to bring her home. He started pressuring me, and finally I said, she's not a nice girl, like air quotes, nice girl. He says, well, what do you mean? I says, well, she's a little loose. And the old man, he didn't miss a beat. He goes, those are the nicest kind. Come on, brother. It's a G room here, Dad.
Is he still around, your dad? Or he passed?
He is not.
Oh,
He's not.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
What's the toughest decision you ever had to make, Jimmy, or the hardest thing you ever had to do that you could share?
I think the hardest things that I ever have to do, are leaving. It depends on whatever it is. It's always so, as bad as situations are, it's always so easy to stay. I stayed probably in my first marriage longer than I should have. I probably stayed on that Mel McDaniel gig longer than I should have. And I think it's the it's the transition, and it's the stepping off into to what you don't know.
Better the devil known than the devil unknown. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think those have always been the toughest things.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, I'm going to ask you 3 more questions, and I cannot thank you enough for your time and your just being you and being so straightforward and sharing, man. So thank you. Most important lesson your business has taught you?
The most important lesson my business has taught me? I think to just make things, the music business is about music, and if you're not making music, there's nothing to market, there's nothing to publish, there's nothing to sell, there's nothing to record. So I think my gifts are in the creative, and so to playing to those strengths, because I can remember in some partner business meetings where guys were trying to relive past projects and repackaging and let's do this, and I was like, yeah, well, we've already sold that to so many people already. Why don't we make something? And I think that's part of my job, and I didn't really understand that. But, the support staff or whatever, unless I'm making something, nobody else can help me with it.
Yeah, that's how you're solving people's problems, actually. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that change has been intentional and deliberate, and how much has just been a natural process of aging?
I have become dramatically more outgoing, and that's been ongoing. I was still pretty introspective before I signed my first record deal, and still pretty, classic stoic musician. But I think being in the business that I'm in, I learned the value of, I'm not just selling music to guitar players, I'm selling them to families and to wives of guitar players and stuff like that. And so being more outgoing and being a little bit more, letting my personality shine through and don't play it too cool. I'm a little bit geeky and a little bit nerdy, and I think that it's a charming geeky and nerdy, and I think, letting that shine through is fine.
And it doesn't matter. It's yours, so it doesn't really matter what anybody thinks of it anyway, man.
Yeah.
Last question. Knowing life is precious and time isn't infinite, and I think you're a great guy to ask this to, because you've had this example with your health, which makes this more real to you than probably a lot of people. What's the one thing that's most important to you as far as like making sure whatever time you have left is being spent wisely?
Mm-hmm. Right. What's most important? Well, my family is very important to me. I love the kids. It's been so interesting. Craig, I mean, if we had a lot of time, I'm usually the storyteller on our trail runs and stuff like that. I mean, I've been in so many great situations where these exotic events have happened all over the world, where I can be the obnoxious guy at the party that, any subject come up, man, I can take a segue to some fantastic tale that has happened to me, but it's the most pedestrian things and just time with my family that has actually meant the most. I mean, stuff that, well, you would trade this for that. I would trade this, my family and being, an assistant coach with Max's baseball team and taking Tank to karate any day. And I didn't know that at the time that I was doing all this cool stuff. I was like, man, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. And we had kids late in life. And all of a sudden I'm with my wife and the boys, and we're doing the stuff that the rest of America takes for granted. And I'm like, oh, I get it. This is the real stuff here.
Man, I can't thank you enough. I want to tell people where they can find you. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Honestly, I really enjoyed this.
Oh,
and if
pleasure.
I love to work out with you, but there's no way I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning, man. If you want to train at 7:38, I'm down.
we'll do that.
Yeah, because I'll be up there at the end of this month. Hey, let me tell you, I want everybody to check out Jimmy. First of all, go to diamondrio.com. They tour all the time. They're a great band. They've sold 24 million records. I mean, I really appreciate Jimmy's time. This is a guy who's really, really busy. So thank you. Please support Jimmy and Diamond Rio. Go out and see their shows when they're on tour. Come say hello to Jimmy. Don't you dare give him a hug, but shake his hand and tip your ball cap to him or whatever. But tell him you heard him on here and you loved his interview. Also on Facebook, check him out at the Jimmy O Show. And also he's got a great YouTube channel, the Jimmy O Show. And I did that. And I did not know this, but he actually gives lessons, guitar lessons. And if you're serious about working with him, he's like not going to pussyfoot around. He's not going to tell you play wonderful if you don't. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's a safe assumption based on the last hour and 48 minutes we spent together.
We're cracking the whip over here, Craig. Cracking the whip.
That's the only way. And if you're interested in getting lessons from a guy who's got 14 Grammys and sold 24 million records, which is probably the only time you'll have an opportunity to do that, go to the Jimmy O Show on Facebook and message him from there, and tell him your story and see if it's a fit. Man, thank you. I don't know what to say. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Everybody,
thank you so much for listening. Check out Jimmy Olander online. It's Olander, and support Jimmy and Diamond Rio. Thanks again to Jimmy Olander for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter and to get some special offers. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have some fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. Thank you for listening, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.